Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Mansfield District Crematorium Joint Committee on Monday, the 24th of May. I've just got a few housekeeping arrangements to go through before we move on to the agenda. So, firstly, there is no fire alarm expected today. So, if the fire alarm does go off, it will follow suit to the assembly point through to the fire escape over there. Officers have worked to create a COVID-19 safe meeting space in accordance with the current levels of restrictions. There are a few simple steps we are all asked to take. Please wear a face covering unless medically exempt at all times. Members and officers may remove face coverings when speaking, addressing the committee. Please remain seated. Shouting is discouraged. A one-way system is in operation. In via Civic Door 1, out via Civic Door 2, as signed. Hand sanitizer is available at the entrance and exit. Please leave the building immediately after the completion of the meeting. And that's the housekeeping taken care of. So if we just move on to the agenda then. So agenda item 1, apologies for absence. We have apologies from Councillor Dave Martin and Mayor Andy Abrahams, who has been substituted by Councillor Craig Whitby. The next agenda item is the appointment of the chairman for the coming year. It is Ashfield's turn to chair this year in accordance with the Constitution. So I'd invite an Ashfield member to nominate for chair, please. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to nominate Councillor Thomas Hollis.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. So, Councillor Hollis, thank you very much. I'll hand over to you.
Thank you, Councillor. And I think it's been quite an unusual year last year to chair meetings virtually. I think you did a fantastic job doing that, which none of us were frankly used to. So, moving on to agenda item 3. Which is the appointment of the Vice Chairman. Members will be aware that it's the Newark and Sherwood District Council's turn. So do we have an indication from the members from Newark and Sherwood who would like to nominate to be the Vice Chairman?
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to nominate my colleague, Mrs. Lydia Hurst.
Thank you. So can we just ask the clerks to note that Councillor Hurst will be the Vice Chairman for the next year? Thank you. So moving on to agenda item 4, declarations of interest from members and officers. Does anybody have any interest to declare? Nope. So going quite fast. So obviously we've had a declaration to record the meeting already from the officers. So agenda item 6, minutes of the meeting held on the 22nd of February 2021. So I assume members have read them, and do we have a mover for those minutes? Move those, and I'll second those. So do we have a show of hands just for those minutes, please? Thank you. So moving on to the first substantive item on the report, agenda item 7, the operations update report. So do we have an officer just to talk through this item, please?
Thank you, Chair. My name is Dave Clay. I'm the new Cemeteries and Crematorium Manager and Registrar, so I will present the operations report on the crematorium today. So moving forward then, just a summary. The report seeks to provide an update on staffing and current operational issues at the Mansfield Crematorium. Number 2, recommendations that members note the report and discuss with the view of approving following proposals from the information set out in the report. 2.1, that an infant charge for under 18 for cremations is approved. To implement a holdover policy. To agree to have a memorial tree in the grounds of the crematorium for the former manager. To agree a new way of operation for the Book of Remembrance. To agree a change in the retention of ashes from 48 hours to 7 days. The setting up of a friends group for the crematorium and that new memorial options and fees are agreed to implement mid-year for further information brought to the next meeting. Okay, section 3, staffing at the crematorium then. As I've just mentioned, I am Dave Clay. I'm the new Cemeteries and Crematorium Manager. I have been appointed on the 22nd of February 2021 and now handed over from Julie Snowden, the interim manager, to for the continuous workflow. There is currently no sickness within the service. We have recruited 2 administration posts and a gardener post and relief cremtech, and all is going well with those posts. Section 4, and just a bit of an update on COVID-19. So we have still continuing with quite a few funerals, but it has decreased over the time. Now we are coming out of the pandemic, which is good, that the funerals are dropping off. We're still undertaking around 9 to 11 funerals per day. The majority of slots are still mornings, still mornings and through the day, with reduced slots on Saturdays and earlier mornings. We still continue to work in a COVID-secure way, maintaining bubbles where possible and adhering to the additional measures of social distancing where possible. We're continuing to work outside a lot more than we were previously now that the restrictions are easing, which means that the grounds maintenance is getting on top of quite well. Witness doings are still continuing in line with the latest government restrictions. 4.6, the book remembrance has continued to remain open Monday to Friday through the second lockdown due to safety measures that have been implemented. However, moving forward, the COVID pandemic has shown us new ways of working. They've now become apparent. And if I could draw your attention to agenda page 21, this information shows the usage of the Book of Remembrance throughout the pandemic and for the last couple of years. So what we would look at wanting to move going forward is to open the Book of Remembrance during the week from Monday to Saturday, however have it closed on potentially Sundays and the majority of bank holidays. This can be viewed online and therefore it's only closed at the actual building. People can view the Book of Remembrance online from home. Face coverings are still in use in all public areas by staff and by the public. And the crematorium staff on number 4.8 are looking at setting up a friends group for the crematorium in a secure way and hopefully working with that friends group to secure a lot more funding and works going forward. Okay, so section 5, the new proposals. Since I've been in post, I have reduced the internet and the phone contract. We were paying a substantial amount of money for those contracts. However, that's now being reduced, making a saving on average around £300 per quarter. The crematorium and cemeteries booking system is now being reviewed and in the next few weeks will be upgraded significantly to enhance the booking system of the crematorium to allow funeral directors to book online, for memorials to be viewed and booked online, and also the financial package in that booking system to ensure that invoicing is done correctly and swiftly throughout the process. The fee for the splitting of ashes has now been removed. Under the Federation of Burial and Cremation Authorities legislation, we are not as an authority supposed to be splitting ashes. Therefore, that can be done by the families. Therefore, the fee I advised has been removed for us to stop doing that and just allow the families to do that. We give the ashes to the family in their entirety. But, however, if they would like to split it, that's entirely up to them. Section 5.4. At the moment, we do not have a fee for the cremation of infants or anybody under 18. This section is to be discussed by members because we can, going forward, claim money back from central government for the cremation of infants and under 18s. There is no charge to families. However, but any expenditure that is taken by the crematorium can be claimed back to ensure that all costs are met. And there's a few examples in there of other local authorities, what their charges are. So therefore, it's just giving members an indication of what charges can be claimed back for infant cremations and under 18s. There's also a table in there for infant cremations, for the number of infant cremations and proposed costs or proposed income that could be made from that scheme. So therefore it is advantageous to this committee that they agree a fee going forward so that we can generate further income to cover our costs. Section 5.5, and it is agenda page 15. There is now a holdover policy in place, and I'd like members to agree to this holdover policy. This means basically that what we can do as authority is to ensure that we utilise our utilities at the crematorium accordingly, and it allows us to hold over the deceased remains overnight at the crematorium securely to ensure that we utilise the facility correctly. There is the holdover policy from the ICCM and the Federation of Burial and Cremation Authorities. Basically, this sets out what should be done if the holdover policy is to be implemented. And it allows, like as mentioned previously, it allows the crematorium to ensure that they utilise their facilities accordingly. The 5.6, the cremated remains retention policy, used to be 48 hours. What this means is that once somebody is cremated, their cremated remains are held at the crematorium for 48 hours, and then they are strewn in the grounds of the Garden of Remembrance if that is the instruction of the applicant to the funeral. I have now changed this to 7 days, as I didn't feel that 48 hours was an adequate enough time for the deceased family to make up their minds. Basically, if they change their mind, so for example, if they want their loved ones remain scattering without anybody to witness, it means that they would have now 7 days to change their mind rather than 2. So, okay. We have scheduled in visits to other crematoria. As in the last meeting, I understand that members would like to go and visit other crematoria. I have tried to contact a few crematoria to schedule in visits. However, due to the COVID pandemic, they're not currently taking visits at the moment, but they have come back to me from Lincoln and Trent Valley advising that they would be more than happy to see officers and members accordingly if any members and officers would like to go and visit. And 5.8 on this section, also from the last meeting, it was mentioned that a virtual tour of the crematorium would have been advantageous for members. For those that haven't been to the crematorium, I can conclude that this has been done and can be shared with members accordingly after this meeting, if that's what members would like. Section 6, commercial innovation. I'd like to draw your attention to agenda page 20. Basically, what this is looking at new memorial lines for the crematorium. At the moment, the crematorium does offer new memorials or memorials for the families, for their loved ones. However, I feel that this can be increased with members' approval. We can increase a range of memorials, and there is a few examples on agenda page 20 of various memorials with costings from other crematoria as well. And if members approve, I can look at implementing these memorials accordingly at the crematorium, in turn increasing income for the crematorium, but also giving the bereaved a lot more choice to remember their loved ones. Section 6.2, this is agenda page 18. We would like to look at placing a memorial tree in the grounds of the crematorium for the previous manager of the crematorium, been there such a long time. There are various options on agenda page 18 as well as agenda page 19 to provide a Forget You Not garden with the memorial tree in memory of the former manager, but at the same time introducing this garden and this tree for everybody that uses the crematorium to allow them to remember their loved ones as well. 6.3, electric equipment has been trialled now at the crematorium over the last few weeks. And I can say that we are going to be the first service in Mansfield Council to try and get this electric equipment. It's now been ordered. This electric equipment includes hedge trimmers, leaf blowers and strimmers, and a couple of lawn mowers. This hopefully will cut the carbon footprint down at the crematorium and allow us to move forward with a lower carbon footprint. Section 7, cremation data. Cremation data has been taken from the 1st of January 2021 to the 31st of March 2021, and we undertook 838 cremations within that period, which is an increase compared to 660 over the same period last year. The number of cremations estimated for 2020-21 was 2,400, which was amended due to the impact of the COVID pandemic to the number of cremations which actually finished at 2,734. The throughput figures will continue to be reviewed monthly, and any further changes will be reflected in the forecasts. The table below shows a comparison per quarter over the last 2 years. And last section on the recommendations, just to note the recommendations again. The members note the report and discuss with a view of approving the new proposals set out in the report as per below. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, and it's great to have you at the meeting actually, and I can already tell from some of the comments you've made on this report that we're finally moving in a bit more of a commercial direction and more of a progressive direction. I think that's something that all the committee here has been wanting for some time actually. So I'm certainly impressed with that. I would say for future, you know, members can read the report. You don't need to talk through every part of it. If you choose to appeal, you'd like to focus your time more on certain elements of it to discuss. But I do welcome in this instance you walking us through it. But does any member have a comment to make on the report? Councillor Bergen.
Thanks, Chairman. Again, I welcome and thank Dave for the excellent report he's given us. He's definitely hit the ground running and come up with some good suggestions. One thing I'd just like to put forward is the recommendation 2.1 that we're going to discuss. So I'd just like to put forward that we do propose a charge or introducing a charge of £210, which is the medium of what's at on page 11 of our agenda.
Was that £211, isn't it?
210, Chairman.
I'll second that, Chair.
Councillor Smith.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I do have some issues with this, and it's something that I've had battles with at my own council over the years as well. If I can get your solid assurance that nothing will come back on the families, the relatives, then I will support this. But I couldn't support it without that firm acknowledgement on record that it absolutely won't impact on any relatives. Thank you.
Could we bring you back in, so Councillor Hurst? So just talk the committee through the process. So it seems slightly bizarre that this committee isn't charging for this if we could have been claiming it back. So I don't know what your opinion of the fact that we haven't been doing it thus far. And secondly, I'm assuming from what you've said that we aren't out of step with other authorities. And how does the process actually work? Do we bill the families and then they claim it back, or do they not receive a bill at all? It's just an administrative fee?
Yeah, what tends to happen with the funeral fund, it's the child funeral fund from central government. We do not bill any families, so families do not get any bills at all. The funeral directors also claim that money back from the child funeral fund as well, so there is no charge to any family member whatsoever. What happens is a funeral will take place, and then we will basically fill out a claim form to central government, to the Ministry of Justice, and they will then pay us the money that is owed, that is approved here, if approved here today, of £210 per funeral. But there is no charge to any family member whatsoever, and they do not receive an invoice.
Councillor Hurst.
Yeah, I totally agree with the fact that we should charge something if we can claim it back. But at the end of the day, if the parents aren't going to be really knowing anything about it, I think it's a good idea, but just wonders why we've not done it before. Is it a new thing? So yes, I've got a couple of other things to say on the agenda, but I'll leave it with that.
But why haven't we done it before, I suppose, is the question. Not your responsibility, but...
No, some authorities have done it previously, and a lot now do. Others have chosen not to. But basically, it's just to offset any cost or any expenditure that's incurred at the crematorium, or for burials as well. If members run cemeteries, it can be claimed back for the burials of young children and under 18s. Why this has not been done before, I honestly couldn't answer that question. It may be something that this committee has not chosen to do or not been made aware of previously, but I'm now making you aware of what is now available for hopefully for us to move this forward.
No, thank you for that. Does any other members wish to speak? Councillor Richardson.
Yeah, I entirely agree with the proposals, but keeping a north eye on government policy in case that changes and we end up having to send bills out. And then we just take that into account, that we keep his eye on that. What is an hypothetical situation at the moment?
I would agree wholeheartedly, and I think with the committee's approval, I think we should possibly task officers to rewrite the wording of the report here, rather than reading the charge of under 18 cremations. I think it should definitely read something along the lines of we agree to access government funds for the committee rather than charging the under 18s themselves. So bearing in mind this is a public report of which members here are held responsible for, I think it's probably more appropriate that we word that to reflect the reality of what's happening. Does any other member wish to speak before I make a few rounding comments and move the item? So my final comments, I think, really on behalf of the committee, and this is probably directed to yourself. How would you like me to refer to you, by the way, during the meetings?
Dave is fine.
Just Dave's fine,
Yeah,
okay.
fine. Thank you.
So obviously we welcome Dave, and I think it's quite clear to personally me, but I'd assume the rest of the committee, that this report reflects probably what we've all been feeling for quite some time. And we certainly intend to have quite a good dialogue with you directly, but also the rest of the officers. But one of my concerns has been with the staffing. If you've read quite a few of the items, Dave, in the past, there's been a number of repeated items about staffing, understaffing, usage of temporary staff, etc., pressures on the workforce. And your report here seems to make quite clear that you've put things in motion that are going to stop that. I'd really just like a few assurances and maybe a bit of a background about how you've gone about doing that, because we've been talking for the last 2 years about staffing problems, and seemingly in one report it's gone away. But I think the main issue we've certainly had is the decrease in numbers of usage with our crematorium, particularly with the fact that we seem to be out of step with other crematorium, locally, privately run ones. And your thoughts, free thoughts, frankly, I'd much rather have your opinion on everything as a professional. I'm sure the rest of the committee would, about what you believe we could do better to make sure we compete. Is it talking to funeral directors and having a better relationship? Can we offer incentives to them, whatever it is? But seemingly other crematorium are doing that better than us. And we need to make sure we're delivering a financial return as well as a good experience for users, for members of our districts. So, and if you'd like to make a few comments before members vote, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, just touching on staffing, I think it's been quite an unsettled time recently for staff at the crematorium, with the previous management over the last couple of years. Things been a lot unsettled with the pandemic. So I think now that we're coming out of the pandemic, and hopefully that the management is now settled and staff are now settled, having staff more involved in the processes and procedures, what's going on, I think helps as well, because once we make them feel empowered and make them feel involved, they then want to be there and want to continue doing a good job. So I think by doing that, that really helps. That's what I've done previously, and made sure that everybody, we work together and provide the best service we can. When you've mentioned, Chair, about the decreasing numbers of funerals, I think the crematorium has to move forward. It has to move forward commercially, but at the same time it has to modernise. My background is in commercialisation, modernising crematoria. I've done it previously where I used to manage, and I think by doing that here at Mansfield we'll bring in more people to the crematorium. At the moment the crematorium, I believe, is stuck in the past, and we do need to move forward with modernisation. By doing that, it means investment. We need to invest in the crematorium to bring it forward, to get that significant investment in there, which will bring people in. And that's not just in the building, but that's also in the grounds as well, because the outlook of the grounds is the first thing that people see, and that's what we want. We want people to come back. When we talk about cremations and people coming back, we talk about generations. So, for example, if Granddaddy's going to come, it's where Grandma's coming, and so further down the line for generations. And that's what we need to keep, because when we start losing that, that's when you start losing numbers at the crematorium, which we don't want. So by modernising and investing, commercial thinking going forward, offering more to the bereaved, because I always believe it's a choice. We've got to give the bereaved a good choice of memorials, good choice of service, and by doing that we get more people coming. Thank you.
No, I definitely agree with that, and I think probably to round that off is the makeup of our districts, I think, allows room to grow. I think Mansfield is probably the only exception where everything in Mansfield comes to the crematorium naturally because it's in the middle, whereas Ashfield, Hucknall is very much a lagging part. We get very few cremations from there, and of course Newark Sherwood's a very vast district, but I think definitely encouraging some of the further away parts from there to use our services, and how we do that is it'd be great to hear. But well, I'm going to move this item, and I'd just like a seconder. Oh, sorry, Councillor Smith.
Sorry, just really one quick thing, and it's not really to do with the report as such, but I was at the crematorium a couple of weeks ago for a relative that had passed away. And just one really quick thing. There's a load of tape on the floor where the benches usually are. And I know that we need to mark where they would normally be, but it just looks really, really bad. If there was a way you could do it with a bit of chalk or something and take that tape up, it would look a lot, cause from a relative perspective, when you sat there and, you know, you think that moment of silence to think and stuff, it just looks really bad. Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry, Councillor. Well, could I call on you, Councillor, as the Vice Chairman, to second it, please? Yes. And could members vote on the item and just to agree recommendations on page 8 of the agenda pack, but also with Councillor Bergen and Councillor, Whitby. Sorry, I shouldn't forget that. I like Whitby. It's a nice place. But Councillor Whitby's £210 proposal for the government recharge, which is going to be reworded at 2.1. So if members would like to show in favour.
Chair, does that also include the change of wording that you said?
Yes. So the change of wording at 2.1 for which is going to read the government recharge of £210 for under 18 cremations. Yes. Councillor Bergen.
Thank you. It's just you've said that we're going to move this to the vote, but we still haven't discussed the options in recommendation 2.7 with regard to the memorials. So could we do that before we move to the vote, please?
Of course. Sarah.
Sorry, I was just going to come in on the charge briefly. So in order for us to claim it back, we do have to list it as a charge. So we can change the wording to say that we'll implement the charge and we'll claim it back from the thing. There'll be no charge to the families or however you want to word it, but it does need to be worded that there is a charge for that service.
Well, that's fine, but the recommendation at 2.1 will read the government recharge of £210, and then in the document you can perfectly say that within the detail. But we members will be voting on a government recharge, of which you can word it how you wish in the document pack.
As long as the ultimate outcome is that we're able to advertise a charge for that service on our website.
I'm sure you can sort that out. Councillor Bergen made quite a good point at 2.7 that we do need to discuss. The new memorial options and fees agreed mid-year, further information brought to the next meeting. So, Dave, do you want to just walk us through this?
Yeah, basically I've just put together on agenda page 20 some various options of various memorials that we could potentially offer at the crematorium, and it's what other crematoria are offering around us as well. And it's basically for members to agree either looking at all of those options. If you'd like us to provide all of those options, we can go, as officers, we can go away and formulate all that to put that into motion. Or is there any in particular memorials that members feel that isn't appropriate, or they feel that they would like to discuss further?
Do any members have an opinion on that? Or, well, I suppose my personal opinion would be that as long as it doesn't look cluttered and a mess, but I assume you've got that in your mind already. But frankly, if we're offering all these things and people want to buy them, I suppose it'd be really great for them to remember their families and bring on a bit of income too. Councillor Hurst.
I think that we should look into this a little bit more, because at our cemetery in Balderton, we've just opened up a new little park, and we've got people putting fairy lights around, and whilst you totally agree that these people are grieving and everything like that, it's just getting out of hand. And you know, and also, like you say, limit the amount of things that go on, because it's over the top sometimes. And I have every sympathy. I lost my husband 7 years ago, and I've got photographs of him around the house everywhere. You know, and some people go, oh my God, you know, but it's everybody's choice, and I do think we should look at what we're going to allow in a bit more depth, and probably have some bit more some information, and because I can't read this small print either. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I quite like the idea of the bird boxes more than any of the others, to be honest, because I'm not in charge of cemeteries at the district council anymore, but when I was, one of the biggest issues we had was the maintenance of the cemetery and things like that. So actually the bird boxes are a really good idea because it doesn't impact on the maintenance of the grounds. So yeah, I think that, in my opinion, I'd go with the bird boxes if it was just entirely up to me.
Well, it seems to me from members that we relatively support the fact that we're going to do this more commercial approach, Dave, but I think particularly with Councillor Hurst's comments in mind, we just want a smart cemetery where people can walk in, and I think we want people to have as much choice to remember their families, but in mind that we don't want it to become Blackpool Illuminations, I think, to put it politely. But seemingly from this, it's a bit of a menu where people can buy into what they want. And I suppose as much choice as people have got, the better. And it fits in with the memorial tree as well. So I suppose comments for the notes of this meeting will be that maybe bring it back to the next meeting where we can have a bit more of an in-depth discussion, maybe where you make the print a little bit bigger as well for some of the committee as well. But actually, we're very interested in this. It fits in with our exact agenda of commercialisation, and it seems like a quick win. But we'd certainly like to understand what others are doing, copy what's going well, and a few of the other ideas. But yeah, very impressed with it. Thank you, Dave. So, Councillor Bergen.
Thank you, Chairman. I mean, I'm personally happy to second Councillor Smith's proposal that we will go with bird boxes straight away. I think that would be, it wouldn't clutter up the crematorium at all. It'd give the mourners a chance to put a memorial on a tree in memory of their family. And then just one last thing, Chairman, I think we need to come back to the memorial tree one because we've got two options in front of us. So I think we need to decide which one we'd like to go with. If that's okay, please.
Chairman. That was one of the things I wanted to talk about. First of all, just 5.8, the virtual tour. I think that's a fantastic idea for members. And then, of course, the memorial tree. I think that, again, is a very lovely idea. Whilst I like them, I think, and then the top one is going to be it's more expensive, but the income back off of it is better. And it doesn't look, it looks in keeping, whereas the other one looks like a modern decoration. And I'd like to propose that we go for the top one, which is on agenda page 18.
Councillor Smith.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'd happily second Councillor Hurst's proposals for the top one. I think it looks much nicer than the bottom one and it's much more in keeping.
Yeah, I'd certainly agree with that myself. So we can move that forward, Dave. I think with the only, just with Councillor Bergen's comments regarding the bird box and Councillor Smith's, I presume that we're going to leave all options on the table for people to purchase. You know, if people want bird box, I think it's quite right to say that they're an easy win and quite a nice thing for people. But there's other options on that menu, and we'd like to certainly explore that list about other things we can do without filling every little space. We'd maybe make certain sections where we can do that. Certainly with the tree being a prominence part somewhere near the front. And I presume, Dave, we can have more than one of these trees. I presume it's a start.
Yes, absolutely. If we would like to have more than one of those trees in the grounds of the crematorium, by all means, we can certainly do that.
Well, I'd certainly like to begin by having, as Councillor Hurst said, the nicer one at the top there, positioning it somewhere prominent at the front, and marketing it well, certainly with the funeral directors, and then I don't know if we can offer some sort of incentive for them to market. I don't know. I'll leave that up to you. You seem like you've got commercially minded, but certainly with the view to expand that and identifying other locations, particularly if we're going to have other sites where people can buy things, making sure it's not too cluttered, and we leave potential sites for other memorial trees. But Councillor Smith.
Yeah, sorry, why is this going all weird on me? Good thing. Have we looked at a memorial wall? Because I know it's something that the district council were looking at for dealing with the issues that we've got in the cemeteries of overcrowding with different things, and having doing it as like Councillor Holly suggested, like a memorial corner. Is that something that you've looked at any point? Or I know you haven't been in post very long, so, but is that something that you have looked at or you would consider looking at?
Yeah, absolutely. We can look at any options of memorials available. I always believe, I'm a strong believer in that we have to give the bereaved a choice, and if we can give them a majority of a large choice of memorials, then absolutely. So yeah, memorial walls or memorial corners. Either that could be, for example, plaque only, or we could have ashes interred into the wall, which is above ground, things like that. Yeah, absolutely. Because the more options that are available, the better for the bereaved.
Councillor Hurst.
Sorry, Chairman, just one quick one. I just wanted to say that I wonder if it might be worth for those that have never visited to go to the National Memorial Arboretum. It is fantastic, and they're just expanding it so much. And the things that they've done there, and the different types of memorials, and whilst some of them would be probably over expensive for us, it might just give us a few ideas to be different, you know. And maybe once we can all sort of be together, maybe we could have a committee visit over there for the day and see, you know, what's going on, and just get some ideas, because I think it would be, especially with I forgot their name, Councillor Smith, saying about the memorial wall, because they've got several of those. They've got them in glass, where sunlight runs through. They've got the brick walls like the Basra wall. And yeah, it may be that people would pay something like that for something different. So it's just a thought.
No, it's a very good thought, and it's something I know you and I have agreed on for quite some time now. And I think certainly now Dave's here and listening, I think he's quite aware that this committee is quite progressive in wanting to see the crematorium change. And the whole reason we brought a professional in like yourself is because we want the expertise, and frankly we want the shackles off. And if we'd rather have 10 ideas and pick one of them than have just the one. So certainly ideas like that where we can not only bring up a bit of income into the crematorium, but also allow residents and users of the service to actually get that real deep experience where they can remember the loved ones. So I think it's a win-win really, and certainly where we're out of step with others at the moment. So yeah, if members are satisfied, we've debated this enough. Well, we're obviously moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Hurst, and could I see a show of hands to move this item? Thank you, that's unanimous. Moving on to agenda item 8 now, which is the Capital Works Programme. Do we have an officer to work through this? Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Chair. So, item agenda 8 is the Capital Works Programme, including the MAE programme as well. So, section 1 is, as mentioned previously, Chair, I won't read everything in the report, I'll just go through and just pick out bits, if that's okay. So section 1 is the summary of the report to provide an update to this committee on the new abatement equipment and other capital projects going forward at the crematorium. Section 2 is to recommend that members of this committee approve the setting up of officer meetings between the districts to discuss further details of works and bring back those details to the respective members. And 2.2, that the committee approve further budget for the associated works described in section 4 in this update. Section 3 is around the background of the capital works and the mercury abatement equipment. Just to bring members' attention, on page 24, the key milestones within the programme, the key milestone number 1 and number 2 have now commenced, and the others are now on track also to commence going forward. Section 4, an update on the MAE. Matthews have now started the design development process, as well as ordering the long lead items for this process, and in the process of getting schematic drawings for this equipment for the crematorium. Whilst these drawings are a step in the right direction, management and design services have asked for more detailed drawings which show the installation. So we have had some schematics already, however I have requested further more detailed drawings how it will look actually in Mansfield Crematorium from Matthews. Matthews visited site on the 15th of April to undertake measurement work for the new equipment. We do believe there's been a delay in the ordering of larger items of the works programme. However, they are committed to making sure that they stick to this programme rigidly where possible, and we have set up 3 weekly meetings with Matthews to make sure that they are on schedule. Moving forward, section 4.5, they've also provided a detailed list of civil and building works required when this work is undertaken on the MAE. And 4.6, while the MAE cost has been accepted and approved previously, Matthews have also provided a quotation for the works which are further below on page 25. There is the various costings there from Matthews. However, there is an extra budget requirement of around 221,000. I do want to stress that that is the upper limit of 221,000, and that above figure includes the following points below that are bullet pointed in the report. Members should also know the requirement due to the contract. If the contract is not carried out, a delay in works, obviously that's going to impede works going forward. As members are aware, we have to stick to the rigid timescale that Matthews have got due to the bats issue that we have at the crematorium. Section 5 is all around the roof works, which I believe is from the previous meetings. So there is information in section 5.1, 5.2 and 5.3 regarding the roof works. And the last section on this report is section 6, which is the major refurbishments. From the last meeting, which unfortunately I wasn't here, but I have watched online, I am aware that there were discussions raised around the PPW and having refurbishment works done at the crematorium. Looking at the PPW over a set amount of time, I would like to bring to this committee that a major refurbishment work programme is looked at going forward in a shorter time period, over 2 to 3 years rather than 15 to 20 years. This falls in line with making sure that we are commercially viable and offering more choice to the bereaved as well as the modernisation of the crematorium. This includes car park lighting and all interior and exterior building works on the crematorium. For example, new carpets, chairs, false ceilings, decorations, which is all detailed in the report. And section 7 is a recommendation again that members approve the setup of officer meetings. So officers from each district can get together periodically to discuss all the detail of what's in this report for the commercial projects of the crematorium, for those officers then to take that information back to their relative committee members. And 7.2, that the committee approve the further budget associated with the works for the MAE. I'd just like to also make members aware that on page 25 there are a number of items that are highlighted, and those items that are highlighted would either fall in looking at the upgrade while we're doing the MAE, or they would look at falling in the major refurbishment. They can be put into both. That's why they're highlighted there. Thank you.
No, well, thank you, Dave. And does any member of the committee wish to comment on the item? No. So just to make a few comments myself then. It's fair to say if you've watched the last meeting you probably know that the committee has quite strong and occasionally differing, but largely we all want to end up in the same place, but frankly different paths to get there. And I'm certainly very impressed with what members have been presented with here on agenda item 29, which is a very detailed what works are going to be carried out. We've also seen documents with the abatement works, which I'm certainly disappointed we didn't see before signing the contract. It almost seems to me like we've signed the contract and then now asked them to come to us with the designs, and no surprise that they're dragging their heels and delays seem to be continuing even with what you've just said. I suspect they're prioritising works where they're trying to get the business rather than business they've already signed up to. But that's my own opinion, not the opinion of the committee. But the committee, I think, certainly wants to see this move forward. Personally, I think we've been backed into a corner with regards to signing this, and it's certainly disappointing that it's even £100,000 more than the original figure this committee was presented with. Of course, subsequent meetings meant that we took it down to the 600 figure, and now we're being asked for 850, which is disappointing, and we certainly would have been more satisfied to know what we were signing ourselves up for before we voted through funds. But with that in mind, I do think we need to move forward. We've had over a year's worth of discussion on this. As Chair, Dave, I would ask that you hold the contractor to approach, and we as a committee aren't afraid of moving in a radical step and moving away from them if they do choose to breach any sort of legal contract that we can uphold with their delaying of timescales. I would ask that we do that to the day. They've messed us around enough, so I don't see why we shouldn't be equally as stubborn. And with regards to the planned preventative works, which you detail in item 6, it's certainly impressive to see actually a steps towards making sure that's right. Something this committee's been reluctant to do in the past, which again is probably part of the reinvention of this committee under yourself. Borrowing is something we've been reluctant to do in the past, and certainly something that I wouldn't ask you to discount. Would borrowing be appropriate for some of the works itemised in 6, which I presume we'll be discussing at a later meeting?
Yeah, in my previous projects that I've done, I have used prudential borrowing for those projects to take place, and then obviously offset that with the income made from the service, the income generation made from the service. For example, a £1.6 million project in Calderdale, where I used to manage, also on the committee for the Blackpool renovation work for their crematorium. I've also been on that one as a consultant. So yes, prudential borrowing is something that I've previously done before, and would be happy to continue if the committee are to agree to that.
Well, thank you. Well, if no members wish to speak now, we'll move recommendations and ask Councillor Hurst to second it and comment.
Yeah, yes, Chair. Can I just ask a question on the roof works? Obviously, we all realise it had to be done urgently, but on the little graph, the contract value, I didn't quite understand the figures, because it sort of doesn't read right, but maybe it's just me. So it's on agenda page 26, so 56,844, and then the subtotal of 45,000 plus lesser retention 44, and I realise the insurance have paid obviously £31,000 out, but it just doesn't read right, and I wasn't sure what I wasn't getting. So,
Dave, would you like to make a comment on that?
Yeah, the items that are in that report 5.2, so the provisional sums contingencies, those items there where the figures have been removed is in the exempt report for this committee. Those items obviously was deducted from the 56,000, which gave a subtotal of 45,910. Which then obviously less the retention is the figure there of 44,762. The 31,500 was paid off the insurance, therefore leaving a total balance of 16,114.22 to be funded from the crematorium budget for those roof works.
Okay, Councillor Hurst.
that's fine, thank you. And just one other thing, the recommendations of moving officer meetings, I think it's a good idea, but I don't think that any of us on elected members should be on any of those committees or meetings. All right, they will bring stuff to us, but I think it's something that they should talk to. And I'd like to move that it is only officers that go to those meetings and then bring the information back to us.
I think that's quite clear in the report, and I'd certainly agree, Councillor Hurst. I mean, I think officers are certainly clear that members here will be making the final decision on any recommendations put forward to us, but I think certainly I know Craig keeps us informed very well, and sometimes it's good to keep some of the frankly strong personalities in this room out of some of the discussions so we can have a freer talk, but then respectively all of our officers from both Mansfield, Sherwood and Ashfield brief us as members. We come to it with a perspective from our own authority, which of course we're here to protect our own interest, but collectively we're here to manage the crematorium. So I think officers are quite clear on that, and I think it's quite helpful actually to have an officer discussion where they can frankly go through some of the detail that potentially members get a bit worked up about or aren't always interested in, a bit of both. And then we can have a bit of an honest discussion in these public meetings, which frankly we should be able to do. But with that in mind, I think it's probably important to say at this point that I'm sorry, can I call Councillor Hurst to second the item first? Is that okay? Ashfield members will be abstaining from this item purely because I think members will agree that we've got quite frustrating views about how the abatement equipment has been financed, and we certainly don't support the way, probably to round off what we were talking about, how officers probably went slightly above their station in signing off documents behind this committee's back, and certainly I don't feel comfortable with that. However, we do need to move forward, and Councillor Bergen, Councillor Hurst particularly, and I have been talking quite a lot. I respect their view, and that's why I think this item needs to progress forward, but not with Ashfield District Council's name attached to it. So with that in mind, could I call on members' support of this item? And those against? And abstain. So that is carried. On now to agenda item 9, annual account statement. Would an officer like to walk us through this item?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So this agenda item is on pages 36 to 122 of your pack and presents the annual reports and statements of accounts for the financial year 2020-2021, showing the financial position as at the 31st of March this year. So the annual statements of accounts is a statutory document, as we all know, which must be produced and approved by this committee. The statement informs the interested parties in the financial position of the crematorium as at the end of March, and shows the financial activity between the 1st of April 2020 and the 31st of March 2021, together with any significant factors that affecting the committee and its finances. The Assurance Lincolnshire have also reviewed the accounts and issued a certificate which states that the statements of accounts present fairly the crematorium's comprehensive income and expenditure account and balance sheet. So section 3 of the report, which are from pages, section 3 of the statements identifies the financial position of the crematorium as at the end of March, and it identifies also the in-year the performance of income and expenditure during the year against against the actual budget that was put forward. Further details is in Appendix C. There's much more detail in there. What was in section 3 is more of an overview. It has been reported throughout the year, as you all know, that the outturn position is likely to be better than budgeted, mainly due to the increase in number of cremations as a result of COVID-19. The outturn surplus is significantly higher than budgeted and which is an additional surplus of 289,194, which has been transferred to earmarked reserves at the moment for future use against the capital programme, which is in line with the crematorium's constitution. However, we have put it into the earmarked reserves for the time being. If that is not needed, then we can decide at a future meeting that is to be redistributed to into constituent authorities, especially given the conversation that was had in the previous item about the possibilities of how we're going to fund any major refurbishment. If we choose that 100% borrowing would be used, then potentially there would be additional money in reserves. But until I think we've made a decision on how we are going to fund a capital programme going forward, I think the best place is to leave it in reserves for the time being, and we can come back to that and redistribute at a further point in time if we feel that is the case. The papers also include the core financial statements that has to be produced, the annual governance statement, which is to be signed by the chair on behalf of the committee and myself as treasurer, and also the actuary's report on the pension scheme is also included. The statement of responsibilities is also required to be signed by the chair on behalf of the committee and by myself. The associated recommendations are on page 36 of your pack, and there are 6 recommendations for the committee to approve. I appreciate there's a lot of information and a lot of pages with this document, but therefore happy just to take any questions that members might have.
No, thank you. And do the members have any questions on the item? No, you see, we all love financial statements. You see, lots of questions, but no, I certainly thank you. It's obviously a very good report. Certainly, with regards to redistribution, it's certainly something Ashfield are very keen to see happen, and particularly with steps being taken to make use of sensible borrowing, particularly with interest rates being low. I think it'd be something that would suit all 3 authorities, particularly with our state of our accounts back at home, if you like, and all our relevant authorities. But I think with that in mind, I will propose the item and ask Councillor Hurst to second it. Seconded, so could we have a vote on that, please? That is unanimous. Thank you. So moving on to the committee work programme, which is on pages 123 of the report. So we can see that in front of us. Are members happy with that, and would we like to see any additions or removals? No, certainly something I'd like to work with Councillor Hurst on is probably making a few additions to the work programme, particularly in relation to some of the tensions that the committee have had with regards to the procurement process. I think certainly anything possibly above a 20,000, maybe 50,000, maybe work with Dave on this item, should be coming in front of this committee for approval and not being decided by officers. And I'd certainly like to work on, with connection to the last item, a climate change statement, everything in relation to our day-to-day work, but also our pensions. So we'd like to make a statement to, or investigate making a statement to the pension fund, and also with regards to our workers, what can we do to make a statement on climate change above and beyond what we've done already. But with that in mind, I will propose the work programme and ask Councillor Hurst to second it. Seconded, so if we can have a vote of that one, please. Thank you. And we have got an exclusion of the public, which, do I have to read this out, the notice, or?
You do need to read it out, but it's figures to back up an earlier report, so
Yep,
it's
so
your discretion whether to go into executive session.
yeah, I mean, certainly something we discussed in Ashfield that I don't really felt we need to have an excluded item on this, truthfully speaking, but I've just taken over the chair and I don't want to rustle too many feathers on day one. But it seems to me that everything that's going to be excluded from the public here has already been discussed in the item that was public. So I don't know if members wish to go into an exempt session or leave it as we are. I'll maybe take some recommendations before I read out the notice. The members from Mansfield or Newark have a feeling on this? Okay.
I have no objections, Chair. We've already discussed the figures earlier on.
Councillor Smith.
Yeah, Chair, I'm happy for us to just move on to the next agenda item.
Move on to the agenda item. So we won't be taking agenda item 11. So agenda item 12 is still in the public session. Capital Works Programme, roof works at Mansfield, pages 11 and 132. And I would ask that the officers release these pages on the public document as the rest now. We haven't gone into an exempt session. 125. Councillor Smith.
Yeah, Chair, I've slight misunderstanding here. I thought we'd just said that we weren't going to discuss this item because we'd already discussed it.
So we don't need to discuss it at all, do we?
So it's on
Because
to
we've already gone, yeah.
agenda item 13.
So we've already taken it. So with that in mind, just like to thank members. So
just ask for some clarity there then, Chair, because you can't publish this. With the agenda, it's commercially sensitive information, so this can't be published. I'm happy for us not to discuss it, but this can't be published.
that wasn't that was why I took representations. All those figures are in the public document.
I'm
So I'm happy for them to be published.
I thought you say I asked you to be added to the pack that went online. So
Yeah, well, it should be, in my opinion. There's-
Chairman, sorry, we'd need to take a vote if the committee was going to decide to publish the
Okay.
figures. We would need you to read the script,
Okay.
take a vote on it,
Okay.
if it was going to be made.
Well, I think I'm personally happy to move on. So why don't we'll leave agenda item 11, we'll leave agenda item 12 and leave them as they are. We'll thank members for their attendance today, and we'll be meeting again at Ashfield on the 20th of September 2021. Thank you.